You exaggerated, didn't you?" Her tone wasn't curious. It was condescending. Deborah Mills, chief of talent at Crane Ridge Consulting, sat across from me in a slate gray office chair like she owned the truth, and I was just some guy hoping to borrow a piece of it. She tapped her pen against my resume like it was a lie detector. Handling international freight integration for South America, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. Sounds ambitious. I leaned forward, kept my voice steady. It's accurate. I built the routing efficiency model that expanded Lintel Freight into 3 new regions before their buyout. Ran integration across every port partnership. She cut me off with a tight smile. Lintel wasn't a top-tier firm. It's hard to validate certain claims when the company's already absorbed. That's all I'd been here before. Cold room, padded lies. They never called it what it was, dismissing you because you didn't fit the image in their heads. 8 months, 73 interviews. Same pattern. You're too senior, too niche, too everything but the guy they already planned to hire. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I was already half done rehearsing my polite exit when the door opened. In walked a guy in a sharp navy suit, mid-step freeze when he saw me. "No way!" Greg Mathis? It took me a second. Then I placed him, Brennan Yates, COO of Monarch Foods. I'd done a contract with them last year. Total nightmare. Warehouse bottlenecks, vendor breakdowns, missed port schedules across 3 continents. This guy, Brennan said, pointing at me like I'd just walked on stage, saved our entire global supply line. His model cut our turnaround by 38%. We tripled exports to Asia. Because of it, Deborah blinked. She looked at me like I'd grown wings. Brennan turned to her. "Wait, are you interviewing him?" "Yes, we are in the screening phase." "You hire this man, and Monarch signs a 3-year strategy contract. Simple as that." And just like that, he was gone. No handshake, no card. Just a bomb dropped and a door closed. Deborah adjusted her blazer and sat straighter. "Well, tell me more about your approach in Southeast Asia," she said, suddenly scribbling like her job depended on it. I gave her the answers, sharp, efficient, but my gut twisted. 10 minutes ago, I was a liar. Now I was the golden ticket. Same resume, same suit, same damn man. I stepped out of that office, didn't say a word to the receptionist, just kept walking. My face probably looked calm, but my jaw was tight enough to crack. 8 months earlier, I was sitting in a different chair. Corner office, glass walls, Axis Chain Logistics logo on the door. I was the executive strategy lead, managing 3 continents and a team that ran like a machine. Then came the takeover. The investors brought in a new CEO, Tyler Preston, a smirking 30-something with shiny teeth and 0 logistics experience. Day 3, he called me into his office. "Greg," he said, leaning back like we were old friends, "your work's solid, but we're shifting culture. Looking for a new energy. That's what they called replacing veterans with college drinking buddies." Within 6 weeks, all 5 department heads who weren't in Preston's orbit were gone, me included. They brought in guys with buzzwords and startup swagger. No clue how to read a customs invoice, but plenty of confidence. I didn't fight the severance. It was decent. I figured with my resume, I'd bounce back quick. That was the joke. Turns out I wasn't what companies wanted anymore. My experience? Too niche. My methods? Hard to verify. Half the time I felt like I was defending gravity. Deborah was just the latest in a long line of gatekeepers. Polite, smiling, dead behind the eyes. She never said no outright, just asked the kind of questions that told me the answer was already decided. Then Brennan walked in, threw gasoline on the room, and now suddenly I was getting ushered to the VIP track. Back in my car, I sat in silence while her words replayed in my head. "We're thinking director of regional strategy," she'd said after the interview. "We'll move quick. The salary would reflect your expertise." I told her I appreciated the opportunity. I even managed a smile. But the truth? I didn't trust a damn word of it, not because she was lying. No, that was the problem. She was telling the truth now, but only because someone with money had vouched for me. What changed was who walked through the door, and that realization burned worse than the layoff ever did. But this was deeper. This was the system saying, "We'll ignore you, undervalue you, dismiss you, until someone with clout tells us you're worth listening to." I drove home in silence, didn't turn on the radio, didn't call anyone. I just kept hearing her voice, all sugar and urgency. "We'd love to fast track you." Fast track me? Lady, you damn near threw my resume in the trash. I pulled into my driveway, parked, and sat there with the engine running. Then I opened my phone, stared at the email draft I'd started weeks ago. Subject line, resignation from the job hunt. I never sent it, but now I wasn't sure if I wanted to hit send or rewrite the whole thing. What I did know? I wasn't about to keep begging for recognition. Someone else could chase their approval. I was going to figure out how to take it. Monday morning, the Crane Ridge offer sat in my inbox like a slab of meat on a hook. I didn't open it, not right away. I needed to breathe. That weekend, I met up with Marcus at a little coffee shop in Midtown. Brick walls, chipped mugs, the kind of place that looked like it used to be something else. We grabbed the corner booth, same as always. He'd been at Axis Chain too, head of partnerships. One of the few people from the old team who didn't sugarcoat things. "You get an offer yet?" he asked, stirring cream into his coffee like it was a science experiment. I pulled the Crane Ridge letter from my bag and slid it across the table. He gave a low whistle. "Not bad money." "Yeah." He glanced up. "But you don't look thrilled." I slid the letter across the table. "Funny thing is, the only reason they offered is because Brennan happened to walk in." Marcus leaned back. "So what now?" "That's what I'm asking myself," I said. He looked around like he was checking who might be listening, then leaned in. "What if we stop chasing approval and start building something of our own?" I raised an eyebrow. "You serious?" "Dead serious. Start a firm, doing what?" "Consulting, like we've always done, but smarter, leaner. You know how many clients I've worked with since Axis Chain dumped us? They all say the same thing. Why is nobody combining logistics data with actual cultural insight?" That hit me right in the gut. I hadn't even realized how starved I'd been for that kind of energy, real talk, real ideas. "You thinking boutique?" I asked. "Exactly. We start small. Southeast Asia, West Africa, Latin America. We build strategy that fits the ground, not just the spreadsheet. Real partnerships. No jargon." I sat back in my seat. My pulse had picked up. It wasn't nerves, it was hunger. "I mean, hell," Marcus said. "Half these legacy firms are still pitching cookie-cutter models from 10 years ago. You and I have actually been in the trenches. You built turnarounds in Colombia, remember? I translated a customs disaster in Senegal into a regional hub. We get this?" I looked at him. "We'd need a name," he grinned. "True Bridge." It clicked immediately. By the time we finished our second coffee, we had it. Client tiers, focus markets, value prop, even a name for the deck. Strategy that translates. That night, I opened Deborah's offer letter. Read every line, solid title, great salary, health plan so shiny it practically glowed. Then I closed it. Next morning, I sent my reply. "Deborah, thank you for the offer. After careful thought, I've decided to pursue a different path. I wish you and the team all the best," she replied 8 minutes later. "Perhaps we can revisit compensation?" I stared at the screen for half a beat. Then I typed back, "This isn't about money." And it wasn't. It was about building something real, something we owned, something no one could give or take based on a handshake behind closed doors. That same day, Marcus and I met at his place. Fold-out table in the garage, laptops barely holding a charge. I brought pizza. He brought a whiteboard. We wrote one rule across the top in black marker. No more gatekeeping. We meant it. The words "no more gatekeeping" were still fresh on the whiteboard when we drained the last of the coffee and got to work. Marcus and I pooled what we had. Severance, savings, a couple credit cards neither of us wanted to touch. Set up shop in his garage next to a busted treadmill and a box fan that never stopped squealing. Still, we weren't just playing entrepreneur, we were building something. And we both knew it. Our break came 2 weeks in. Guy named Damon Brooks emailed me, said he'd sat in one of my strategy workshops years back. Middle management at Westline Tech. Nothing fancy. "We're trying to expand into Malaysia and Vietnam," he wrote. "But the firm we hired says it's not viable." I called him that afternoon. "Not viable based on what?" I asked. "They keep showing us the same recycled charts. Labor costs, trade risk, some outdated logistics profile. They've already decided it's a no. You still want a yes? I want the truth, but I don't think they know how to find it. I pitched him hard, offered a small scope discovery project for half the price. Give us 3 weeks, I said. We'll show you something better. He sent the retainer that night. What followed was 3 straight weeks of hell. We barely slept. I interviewed logistics officers in Ho Chi Minh over WhatsApp at 2 in the morning. Marcus chased customs officers in Penang via LinkedIn messages and cold calls. We ate like crap, lived on coffee and microwave burritos. But we built a model, real-time data, port access schedules, cultural nuances in vendor communication, even rainfall patterns affecting road access during wet season. The day of the presentation, we wore jackets that didn't match and shoes that still smelled like garage paint. The room was cold. 3 suits at a long table, one guy checking his phone every 30 seconds. But we stuck to the plan. Tight delivery, strong visuals, no jargon, just clarity. 10 minutes in, 2 new execs walked in and sat at the back. Damon didn't stop them. He looked at me and nodded. Keep going. By the end, the guy with the phone had stopped checking it. One VP leaned forward and said, "You've addressed things we didn't even think to ask." We walked out into the parking lot, feeling like we just won a fight we weren't even supposed to enter. 2 days later, Damon called back. "They loved it," he said. "You're getting the full contract." 1 win turned into 3 referrals, then 5, then 10. By month 4, we had 5 active clients, 2 junior analysts working remote, and a signed lease on a tiny second-floor office above a car wash. The floors creaked. The ceiling leaked when it rained. But the space had heat, and the internet didn't cut out when someone microwaved soup. I remember standing in that office with Marcus the first morning. No chairs yet, no desks, just 2 guys in a space that smelled like old tires and Windex. He looked around and said, "It's ugly." I grinned. "Yeah, but it's ours. We gotta work." The first time I walked into a logistics summit, I was 26 and invisible. Now, I was standing on a side stage with Marcus beside me, clicking through our deck titled Invisible Opportunity, Overlooked Trade Routes in Underestimated Markets. We weren't expecting a big crowd. Side stages were where they stuck the startups and underdogs. We didn't care. We'd earned this. 5 minutes in, I spotted him. Brennan Yates, front row, gray sport coat, sharp as ever, arms crossed, expression unreadable. I kept going, pointed at the regional shift data, talked through predictive gaps in Southeast Asia, laid out our model showing why companies were wasting millions skipping entire corridors. Then Brennan raised his hand. "How confident are you in those projections?" His voice cut through the room. "Extremely," I said without flinching. "And we've got the numbers to back it." He nodded once. "That supply line fix you gave us last year, you saved our bacon. I'd like to talk more." That was it. He sat back down, but the entire tone of the room shifted. Phones came out. Heads started tilting forward. After we wrapped, a young guy from Supply Tech Daily chased us down for an interview. A woman from a venture capital firm asked for our card. 3 prospects scheduled meetings for the next day. We were still packing up the laptop when Marcus leaned in. "You feel that?" "Yeah," I said. "It's happening." That evening, the summit hosted a mixer at a nearby rooftop bar. White lights, champagne, everyone wearing their most professional version of casual. I was halfway through a plate of shrimp skewers when I spotted her, Deborah Mills, standing stiff beside her CEO, watching Brennan from across the room. He had a glass in one hand, talking loudly with a circle of executives. "We're shifting our entire strategy portfolio to TrueBridge," he said, loud enough for half the bar to hear. I saw Deborah's face drain. Her CEO leaned in, said something sharp in her ear. She didn't respond, just stared at us. I turned back to the bar, ordered another ginger ale. A few hours later, as the crowd started thinning, her CEO approached, tan blazer, serious eyes. "Greg Mathis," he said, shaking my hand. "Impressive talk today. Appreciate that. We'd love to discuss a partnership opportunity. We've been reevaluating some of our internal strategy alignment translation. Brennan's deal had them scrambling. I gave him a polite smile. I respect that, but I've already got a team. He paused like he hadn't expected the door to close that quickly. Well, if anything changes, I'll reach out, I said, even though we both knew I wouldn't. He left without looking back. Marcus came over a few minutes later. What was that about? Desperation, I said. And maybe a little karma. We left the mixer that night walking taller. Not because we'd arrived, but because people finally stopped pretending we didn't exist. 6 months later, Marcus walked into the office holding his phone like it was radioactive. You see this? He asked. I looked up from the client report I was editing. What now? He turned the screen toward me. Crane Ridge launches Global Edge Division targeting emerging markets. I stared at the headline, read it twice. Then I read the subheading. The language was nearly copy-pasted from our own pitch deck, down to the phrasing about data-driven localization and culturally intelligent routing. And right there at the bottom, in bold, division lead, Deborah Mills. Marcus dropped the phone on the desk like it burned him. They're poaching clients, he said. I just got off a call. One of ours passed. Said Crane Ridge came in under us by 30%. I leaned back in my chair. They're undercutting to buy credibility. He slapped a folder on the desk. You know what's next, right? They'll start offering knockoff versions of our services until someone actually believes they invented them. I didn't blink. They can copy our words. They don't have our people. That snapped him out of it. He looked at me, eyes narrowing. The diagnostic? I nodded. We'd been tinkering with it since Axis Chain. Back when we were still dreaming about how to fix the hiring problem no one wanted to admit existed. We pulled 2 analysts off projects and gave them one job. Finish the in-house talent diagnostic. Validate it, test it, package it. 3 weeks later, we launched it to a pilot group of 5 clients. It worked better than even we predicted. The model didn't just rank candidates. It matched them to teams based on cognitive style, communication fit, and regional adaptability. We weren't just filling roles. We were building engines. Feedback came fast. This hire tripled output in week 1. I've never seen onboarding go this smoothly. Why aren't other firms doing this? Our retention rate spiked. Clients expanded scope. The ones Deborah tried poaching, they stayed. Marcus sat across from me one afternoon, scrolling through feedback on his tablet. They can't keep up. They never could, I said. They just didn't know it yet. Crane Ridge had money. They had reach. But they didn't have the brain trust. They didn't have the model. And they sure as hell didn't have our grit. Deborah could chase us all she wanted. We'd already lapped her. It was a Tuesday when the email came through. Subject line, let's talk partnership. Crane Ridge. Attached was a meeting request from a guy named Daniel Quaid, Director of Corporate Development. Polished language, polite tone, but buried in the second paragraph was the truth. They wanted to acquire us. I called Marcus into my office. They're back, I said, spinning my screen toward him. He skimmed it, eyebrows raised. What's their angle? Daniel says the CEO's interested. So is Deborah. Marcus gave a dry laugh. Of course she is, I replied to Daniel, happy to talk. One condition, the meeting includes whoever's leading integration on your side. 2 hours later, he responded. That'd be Deborah Mills. I smiled and typed one word back. Perfect. The meeting was held at their downtown HQ. Glass walls, leather chairs, overcompensating art. Marcus and I walked in like we owned the place because, honestly, we kinda did. Daniel opened with the charm offensive. You've built something incredible. Our CEO sees real value in bringing TrueBridge into the Crane Ridge family. Full resources, national presence, stronger together. Then came the slide deck. Money, office upgrades, prestige. But the fine print said it all. Deborah would be my direct supervisor. She sat across from me in a sleek gray suit, lips pressed into a smooth, practiced line. We'd fully integrate your methodology, she said, but it'll need to align with our internal standards and vetting processes. I stared right at her. The same standards that told me I wasn't credible? Her eyes flicked sideways. She didn't answer. I reached into my folder and pulled out a packet. No colors, no fluff, just the proposal. You want our value? I said, sliding it across the table. You adopt our structure. Full autonomy. Hiring, process, metrics. We keep the model. You stay out of the way. Daniel flipped through the pages, blinking. Deborah didn't touch it. "This dismantles our screening framework," she said, voice sharper now. "No," I replied, leaning forward. "It fixes what you've broken." Silence. Just the buzz of the AC and the tension between my words and their pride. "We'll need to review this internally," Daniel said finally. "Take your time," I said, standing. "We're not in a rush." 3 days later, my phone rang. Same number, same suit. "We're ready to negotiate," Daniel said. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just said, "Send the terms." The papers were signed, terms locked. TrueBridge stayed in control, hiring, process, integration. Crane Ridge got access to our engine, not the wheel. Deborah's role? Stripped down to transition logistics, no more gatekeeping, no veto power, no final word. My first day at their HQ felt like walking into enemy territory. Open floor plan, too much glass. Everyone watching like I'd shown up to replace their boss. Deborah met me by the elevators, arms crossed, blazer sharp, expression tighter than usual. "Congrats," she said, flat as drywall. "I hope you understand we have reputations to uphold here." I looked her dead in the eye. "I do. That's why our first hires will be judged on what they can do, not where they've been." Her jaw twitched. "Your system undermines our entire screening process." "That's the point," I said, and walked past her. In the all-hands meeting, I didn't ease them in. No icebreakers, no soft intros. "We're rolling out new metrics starting this quarter," I said. "Different scoring models, different filters, cultural fluency, adaptability, team dynamic fit." A few managers exchanged looks. One cleared his throat. "That's a pretty big departure from standard HR protocol." I didn't blink. Standard HR is why you've passed on people who now work for us and outperform your senior analysts. Another voice. "What about risk? Consistency?" I shrugged. "You've had plenty of that. Still ended up needing us." I didn't shout. I didn't smile. I just laid it out. Clean and sharp, new tools, new hiring platform, no pedigree bias, no keyword nonsense. Some of the execs grumbled after the meeting, tried raising flags in smaller sessions, said the model was too aggressive, too unproven. Deborah backed them, quietly in private meetings. I heard about it through whispers. But then the first batch of hires hit the floor. One was a guy from rural Texas who never finished college but rebuilt supply chains for a co-op in Ghana. Another? A single mom from Queens who used to optimize vendor networks for street markets in Bangkok. They weren't polished. They weren't Ivy League. But they crushed every benchmark. Turnaround times dropped. Onboarding speed doubled. Team feedback went through the roof. And just like that, the pushback died. The same execs who doubted the system, now asking for the next wave of candidates. Deborah? She stopped arguing. Didn't apologize, didn't congratulate either. She just stepped back, and that was enough. A soft knock hit my door. I looked up from the quarterly breakdown. Deborah stepped in. No clipboard, no entourage. Just her. "Got a minute?" I leaned back. "Sure." She sat across from me slowly, like her legs weighed more than usual. No blazer this time. Just a blouse and quiet tension. "That analyst team you brought in for the Eastern Corridor project," she said. "They blew away our legacy team." I nodded once. "Yeah, they're good." She hesitated. "One of them, Jacob Martinez. I rejected him twice before your system flagged him." I waited. "I was wrong," she said. I gave her nothing but a nod. "It happens." Her hands folded, then unfolded. She looked down. "I've gone back, reviewed every resume I filtered out the last 5 years, compared them to hires your system brought in. The pattern's embarrassing. I know. I thought I was being thorough, careful, protecting standards, but I was just protecting sameness." She didn't say it like a confession, more like a fact she wished wasn't true. She looked up again. "I have to ask, was this your plan from the beginning? Change the system?" I sat quiet for a second, then said, "Not at first. I just wanted a damn job, a chance to prove I was worth the oxygen. But when you told me I wasn't credible, it stopped being about me. It became about all the other people you'd never even let in the room." She didn't flinch, just absorbed it. "I've requested a transfer," she said. Asia Pacific Division, full relocation, clean slate, I nodded. You'll do well there. She stood slowly, turned to leave, paused at the door. For what it's worth, you were right, I looked up. Thanks, and Deborah. Being wrong doesn't make you bad. Refusing to change does. She gave a tired smile, not polite, not forced, just honest. Then she left. And just like that, the war was over. But I knew damn well, our mission was just getting started.